So this webinar is for the science of graphs and charts. Just to brief you, as we usually work with lots of data from different industries, so we usually came across for designing this kind of dashboards. We use our own tool to design those dashboards, and from that thing only we came out of this insight, so that we decided we can share this thing with others also. So few things about charts, as they say, picture speaks a single picture speaks 1,000 words, but in analytics we say a single chart explains, or I can say speaks 1,000 tables. So this is the power of a single graph, how it actually affects any person to understand their data in a more comprehensive way. But to use which graph for which place, this is something that most of the people struggle. Where you are using pie chart, where you have to use a bar chart or the line chart, this is usually comes across, and to solve this thing, I have created this whole webinar and this presentation so that it will become very clear to use which graph for which purpose. Before before starting and to approaching towards creation of your dashboards or different charts, there is a single question we need to ask, and the question is, what would you like to show? So there are actually four different parameters that can helps you to identify this question. That is, do you want to showcase something, a comparison, something related to distribution, composition, or relationships? Let's start with first comparison. So if inside comparison, there are two things that we usually compare. Either it is with items, or second it with time. First start with items. This is for, there are two types of items you can say, which is depending on, one is depending on the single variable, another one is depending on two variables. The first single variable, there are few categories and then many categories. Inside few categories, there are few items and many items. So to use a different chart for this thing, for few categories we usually use column charts. Many categories we switch to bar charts. Similarly, for many categories, you can see over here, as you can see, like a few many categories, we usually switch to grid properly, and then at last there is a variable with column chart. So let's see it live inside a tool. Here we are. I'm taking you directly to the analyzer where we can actually start analyzing those things. So let's start with the one data set I'm having. Let's take FMCG data set. So let's take the first case. Few categories, few item and many items. That is column chart and bar chart. So over here, let me use region, and as this is the FMCG, so there is a sales data. So I'm using a sales. So region wise sales is better to showcase this into a column chart. Let's take records of all from the whole table. Now here we are, north, east, west, south. So as you can see, the data points are very less, so column charts are very highly suitable for it. But when you switch to the same thing I'm going more deeper inside my region. I'm taking a trade area over here and again executing it. You can see there's lot of data points. So preferably we don't use column charts in that case. For that we use another chart, that is a bar chart. More better approach to it is just use descending order and then apply. So here we are. The representation actually changes the moment it switch to some other chart. So this is actually here single category, few category, and then many items. Now let's take a case of where many categories are there. For example, I have a trade area, I have a region, and my boss even asked me to showcase something in channels also. So in this case, if I'm going to use this bar chart, it will look like this. So for better representation, what we do, we switch to grid. Now over here, it gives you lots of flexibility of arranging your data also. So I'm just arranging it, and now here it is. Let's also made it in a chronological order. The picture would be more clearer. Now here it is. So comparison, as you can see in present, we have covered this three graphs. The last graph is a bit complex graph, so I will cover it in the later half of this webinar. Now I'm switching to time. Time is something very crucial when you actually analyzing it. So usually the parameters that comes over here is that what is the sales throughout an year, what is the sales throughout the month, throughout the quarter. This is usually plays out. So let's take it few periods, many periods, few inside few, single or few categories, many categories. And then in single and few categories, we have column charts, many categories, we have line charts. Similarly, for many periods, we have cyclical data and non-cyclical data. So there we cover cyclical data inside the radar graph, and non-cyclical we use usually the line graph. Let's take it over here. Now let's take our first case, that is few period. So few period, inside it let me take one date format and convert this into a quarter. So we have a quarter. Okay, here we are. Here it is, and then execute. So here we are, 1, 2, 3, 4 quarter. Now what we have to see this quarter into inside different year. So I use one year column also and then execute it. For better representation, we usually let's switch to pivot column and use this pivot year in the pivot side. Then we will see how each quarter is performing in different years. Let's take a column chart. Here it is. Now the things are pretty much fine. 1, 2, 3, 4. For every quarter you are seeing, you are actually comparing it with the previous year. So I'm just arranging my quarter from ascending to descending, and here we are. Now the moment for 1, 2, 3 and only 4 quarter, this thing is fine. But if you're switching this to the line graph, how you will now then you will see how how clumsy it will become. So that's the reason line graphs are usually used for more data points. Now to use a line graph inside it, we will switch this data from quarter to month. Here we are, month, and then execute. So as you can see, it becomes very clear whenever we use line graph for a longer period. I'm just arranging it once again. So as you can see, January, Jan, Feb, March, April, May, you can compare it, and then further July, August, September, October, December. So as the data is still June 2017, so you can see the whole comparison of last 3 years over here only. Last one more graph I want to cover is that is radial graph. Now what is this radar graph usually? What is the purpose of it? As you can see over here, I can see, let's make it more clear and remove these labels. Now I can see throughout from Jan to December what is my average. Usually the sales is happening. How it is happening. Jan is very high, then low, then low, then high, then low. Usually this kind of graphs are used to showcase something called as temperature. So when we are dealing with kind of a temperature, we usually use this kind of graphs. So I can showcase you over here. As you can see, this is average monthly temperature, and I'm seeing the three. I'm actually comparing three city average temperature throughout an year, so that I can analyze. You can see like in January it is in Fahrenheit, so I can see this whole temperature inside it. So this is the best representation of a radial graph, and usually this is cyclical. So that's the reason we use for many period this cyclical data. We use this circular area chart, or you can see this radar graph. And when it is not cyclical, we switch to line graph. Now the comparison is done. Let's move into distribution. So inside distribution, similar things: single variables, double variables, three variables. For single variable, few data points and many data points. For few data points, we use column histogram, and for many data points, we use line and histograms. Usually the distribution is occurred to see what is the age band between a certain age band, to see like in the frequency distribution table. This kind of graphs are usually used by most of the statistical insight for statistical analysis, and to the primary, and to showcase our primary research. When it is two variable, we use scatter plot, and when it's three, we usually use 3D area charts. Let's see it live over here. I have a data of a census 2010 India. Let's see population. And we have an age band, and then total. It is a population. So it's taking all the data from the table. Switch to column chart. So here it is. from 15, 19 to 70, 74. This is actually the total population of Indian electoral who would be voting in 2019 election. So this is what we are actually analyzing over here. And as you can see, mostly 15 between age of 15 to 20 to 34. Mostly all the young people lies in this area only, and you will see this kind of effect of this thing in a upcoming election also. Most of the election campaign would be targeted for this young generation only. I think this gives them a lot of thinking and to use when we are clubbing only for few age band. This column charts are used, but over here as you can see there are lot of age band, so better to switch to a line graph that will gives you a more better insights to it. Here it is. Now as you can see the data points are very few, so that's the reason you are seeing in this manner. What if your data points are more? What if along with this population you are also comparing the annual earning of that same age band? Let's take a case of that too, and just for the case I'm just divided by 1000 to showcase you the effect of income also. You can see like two line graphs are here, but to showcase this kind of data it is better to use a scatter plot. That gives you a more better insights inside it. So just applying the same formula once again. So here we are. It is showing me population versus this virtual measure. It is actually the income and giving me a brief insight which age band is over here along with their income. So I think this kind of combination we can use to represent our data and to show a more representation. This is like I've taken also example from somewhere BMI versus age, and these are the people who are actually overing coming like who are age wise and BMI wise who are more fitter. So this is the like overall the distribution of that data. So over here this kind of like scatter plots are used especially to represent this kind of data. Then for the 3D area graph, similarly, these are used for highly more example of it. I think over here. Okay, we can take another data, and as you can see, I have taken one data from sales, and where I am comparing this their quantity and gross amount, and want to see the ratio. So here we are. These are different plants, and what I am seeing is how much quantity of sales how much quantity they are producing and what is the sales is overall. More example into the same graph, we can have this thing like in this manner. There's a profit and cost, and then different products are here lined up. I think this kind of example will gives you to analyze your three-dimensional data more effectively. Now the composition. Composition is where you want to analyze how much one thing is a part of the whole. So for that there is two ways to analyze it. One is changing over time and second is static. Changing over time, similar approach, few period, many periods, and for few periods there are two things. One, you want to see relatively difference matter, and second, you want to see absolutely what is the major difference. So when you are actually seeing the relatively, then use a stack column with 100%. When we are seeing absolutely, then there we use area chart with 100%. Let's take this two case once again. Now, as you can see, this is a HR dashboard and this is compensation and distribution. Over here I can see the whole in distribution from 2004 to 2015, and I can see like how much basic I am giving, how much incentives I am giving, what is my monthly salary, what is my ASR, bonus, gross salary and CTC over here. When you want to see it more precisely, there we use another graph. Here it is. The whole thing is stacked up into area, and you can see like for 2004 to 2015 what is my basic incentives. Now over here you can see the more precisely how much was CTC in certain year and how much was another one. The difference is more clear over here. You can switch this from area, and then over here this chart type. I have used a stack. You can use another graphs also, but stacks are more preferable. Then we have, when we are considering many periods, so there we usually use stack area because you can see the periods are more, the data points are more, and just like line over here, the area graphs are more better to represent your things. Now let's go to the composition in a static form. So in a static, when there is a simple share of total, and the three types of static compositions are there: simple share of total, accumulation or subtraction to totals, and components. So one is when you are just showcasing a simple share of total, there we use pie chart. For example, what is the overall percentage of men and women inside a company? Here it is. So the pie chart is a better way to represent it. It gives you, like you can see, male is 80% and female is 20% in this company. That male female ratio. And then we have a waterfall where you actually showcase what is the overall subtraction to total and this thing. For that, I just showcase you a data. Here it is. So this is the waterfall graph, and you can see I have a product revenue, I have a service revenue, then I have a fixed cost which is in negative, I have a variable cost which is in negative, and then it is finally showcasing me the total. So the waterfall graph is good to represent those data where you are actually adding and subtracting in a real time, and this thing is happening over there, and this is actually affecting your overall grand total. And then finally you want to showcase components of components, so 100% column charts of subcomponents are there. So here it is, as you can see,
This is showing a data of all the mobile OS from 2009 to 2017. In 2009, very interesting to see that the Symbian market share was approximately half, that is 46%, which is then further reduced to in 2017 to zero. So this is the overall impact of how people are using their smartphones.
Then finally, we switch to relationship. So when we see the relationship between two variables, basically, what is my cost and what is my profit? There, we use a scatter plot, and when we see the same thing for the three variables, we use bubble charts. So we have already seen those things over here. This is the relationship between age and BMI, and over here there's a profit and cost, and then the product is over already there. This covers basically the most used graphs in any form, in any visualization. Apart from it, there are few many other graphs also that is been used. So I will also cover them. For example, I have a pacing chart. So the pacing chart is that chart which we use to see how something is performing against a target. So let me switch to this pacing chart over here. Let me use one more another data set. Mm, I think this is where we can use this pacing chart. I will use the sales over here. Let me increase this limit to 1, 2, 3, 4. This is sufficient. Yes. And let me compare this with last year's sales data also. Drop target value, pre-sales. So as you can see, this is actually giving me us insights against the target. So this is the kind of graph we can use. We can actually put lot of segments over here, and we can see how something are we reaching to the milestone or not. Similarly, there are some static display also. The configuration is simple and the same as we have used for pacing. Here it is giving me that there is a 76% raise from the previous year, and it is also giving me the absolute value. Then third we have gauge, radial gauge, and tree map. So the tree maps are here. Let me take a tree map and let me showcase you a case where you have a region and you have a trade area, and how to showcase it. This is how it works out. Or let's take another example. We have one category, brand category, and then further brands inside it. So this is giving me the hierarchy, and I can see the whole things over here. As you can see, inside this VMS category there is one product which is selling better. HFD, this is one, then there are other, and this is R. When you put this thing directly on a dashboard, it will gives you the complete idea about it. So just to showcase you for example, let's go over here. This is radial, and you can see to take a feedback from the client, it is better to use like bad and good. and this is how you can put a conditions inside it, a color conditions out of 100%. This is a tree chart. It is giving you like breakfast, lunch, inside lunch, what we had, and then breakfast, what we had. So this actually cover up the whole thing that we have wanted to share with you. I hope you have liked it and enjoyed it. And if you have any comments and want any kind of feedback, just share with us. And after this webinar, I would be sharing our white paper with you of science of graphs and chart, where you can actually go in detail and you can understand each and every graph, where to use it, how to use it. So this was all about from our side, and if you required any kind of help while designing your dashboard also, we can surely help you in that.